Hi! Okay, so hopefully I got this going right and the video is working and all that stuff. So I started reading my book and I got a little ahead of myself because I couldn't put it down because it was so good. Because first you're reading and it's like her and it's her perspective, and then it flips, and at first you're like, wait, what's going on? Then you realize that there's someone else talking and someone else is narrating it, and it was a fun adventure of I don't even know what's going on. But so the first thing that sparked my interest was she basically in the beginning was talking about how she had a completely normal life, a normal family, she had great friends, she was pretty much one of those people who had it all. She was good at school, she just really had the ideal life that everyone strives for. And then all of a sudden she went to camp, and I believe what happened is that who she had a crush on, this guy who was 23, and I think she was 15 at the time, so he was kind of older. I think that he ended up raping her, but I'm not 100% sure, because as I'm reading this, I don't know what I should take as, fact or fiction, because I don't know if this really happened to her, or if she just thinks that this really happened to her. So I don't know, but that's what I think happened, because usually mental illnesses can be triggered by traumatic life experiences, so this would definitely be one of those traumatic life experiences. So I'm thinking that that's what triggered her to start hearing voices. And she describes her love by saying, I had never been in love, or I had been in love as no one had been in love before. So this was basically this huge, just teenage 15-year-old girl, a big crush on this great guy at camp, and it was something that she felt was really real. So for that to happen, the rape to happen, would be super just crushing in life. Bleh. So the author just really painted a picture, and I felt like I was watching a movie as I was reading this. I could picture everything going on, I could hear what was going on. It was awesome. So I'm going to read part of that. It says, in my memory, we were again down by the huge, dark, romantic lake. Over to the dockside, we could hear the water lapping against the sailboats and the giant water wheels the kids played on during the day. Late at night, the fireflies were gone, but we could still hear frogs croaking along the banks. The sky was heavy with stars I felt like I had never seen before. We sat in the thick grass that ran right down to the water's edge and laughed and talked together. And then it goes on to say, in her memory, we snuggled and kissed, and she describes this moment, and the key thing here is what I'm thinking is, it says, in my memory, so that leads me to think that maybe this didn't happen, this wasn't 100% correct, maybe part of this was already the fact that she had schizophrenia, and she was already seeing these things. As she describes her struggle with schizophrenia, she describes it as a very claustrophobic feeling. It says that she was snatched from her tranquility, and sometimes her self-possession was just completely gone. She didn't know, she had no tangible reality for her. Everything was just snatched away from her when these voices started talking to her in her head. And she said that they came without even asking permission, so they invaded her life without any forewarning that they were there. She didn't know what made them up or where they came from or what they were talking about, and they took over her life completely. When she describes her recovery with schizophrenia, she also talks about how the fierce battle will never end. It's something that will keep going in her mind forever, something that she will have to battle every single day, whether she's on meds or whether she's just in therapy or whether they're doing both. It's something that she can never fully recover from, and that's a scary thought, to think that you can't have control over your own mind, and you never will. She seemed to have control when she was little. She never heard these voices, so she had that feeling of being herself and being all there, and now there are times that she just can't be herself. She can't have that same control, and that to me is the scariest thing. On page 9 there is a very gruesome description of how she remembers killing her dog, and she remembers killing, they had a small pet dog she would describe, and she can remember so vividly taking this golf club and just beating this poor little dog to death, and it scarred her for her entire life, and she keeps holding on to this memory that's so clear. But in reality, when she talks to her parents and her brothers, she realizes that never happened. They never owned a dog like that. She never did anything to animals. She just so clearly remembers this event that her mind has completely constructed based off of nothing. It was never there. It never happened. And it says, on page 11, I thought it was cool that her father studied psychology at Michigan State, because that's where I applied. I'm considering psychology or neuropsychiatry. I don't know, one of those. But I thought that was super interesting because I am so torn between where to go, and just reading this I was like, oh, mental connection. So, and on page 17, she talks about how she hasn't slept for 23 days. And reading this, I thought, how can anyone not sleep for 23 days? I'm assuming this is consecutive days. I'm not 100% sure if that's what she was talking about, but I don't even know if that's humanly possible. So I looked it up just to make sure. When I researched how long a person could go without sleep, I found a website for the National Sleep Research Project, I think it was called, and the record for staying awake was 18 days, 21 hours, and 40 minutes. So, I don't know where her facts are coming from, but that's just what I found online. So yeah, that's a pretty long time for you not to sleep. Also, on page 17, she talks about how she wants her parents to be proud of her. A lot of this pressure, I think, contributed to her schizophrenia, being under so much pressure to be the best, to be, to impress her parents. Academically, it can be very stressful, even at Mercy, especially at Mercy, to make your parents proud. And that's something that I think everyone can relate to, that pressure of trying to be good enough. And I think that even though she had the ideal childhood, she was under a lot of pressure, especially from her father, who came from a poor family and basically built his way up from nothing and became a successful psychologist. So he really pushed her to do well academically, and her mother encouraged her to branch out and do other extracurricular activities. So she was very well-rounded, and she was made sure to be very well-rounded as a child, and a lot of that pressure even extracurricularly, that's a word, I don't even think that's a word, but with extracurricular activities, to be the best at an instrument or a sport, along with that academic pressure and the pressure of her parents being so perfect. She describes her mother being, beautiful and easy to talk to and just this great woman, and she has that to live up to, and then she has her father's academic standards to live up to, can be enough to make or break someone. And mentally, I think she reached that point after what I think was a rape experience. All of that combined contributed to her brain just being unable to handle this and trying to protect itself by shutting down in certain places and messing everything up chemically in her head. And I think that really, really contributed to her schizophrenia. Going off of being under a lot of pressure academically, I have noticed, especially watching the videos in class, that a lot of the people who have severe mental illnesses such as schizophrenia are extremely smart. Their IQs are very high. They have gone to very prestigious colleges. I think someone from our video went to Harvard, someone else went to Yale. It seems to be a trend that the higher the IQ, the more brain activity there is, the more likely someone is to have a mental illness. And I think that's because possibly there's more brain function and more chances for there to be wires that are crossed. You start to see more of her mental breakdown and her schizophrenia really coming out, especially on page 18, where she talks about how she feels like she has to save the world, like she's there to really save everyone from something, and if she doesn't, then she herself will be killed. And not necessarily the voices are telling her that, but the way that she feels. She has this delusion of needing to be a savior, and that was one of the things that we talked about in class that paranoid schizophrenics really have. They have either someone is out to get them, there's conspiracy, or they feel like they need to save other people, either, themselves or one other person or the world from something else. And that is a reflection on how much pressure is on her. Lori really has pressure coming from all angles, even though her family life, like I said, was very ideal. She's got the school and the extracurricular activities, and the fact that she has that ideal lifestyle, that she has to maintain it. And then later in college, the pressure of her being away and going to college, the fact that she feels that pressure to do something greater to save the world really reflects on how much pressure she has as an individual. Something that really interested me was on page 25, when she talks about how she was driving and then she got pulled over and one of her hallucinations kind of took over her. It says, "Right before my very eyes, the state trooper with his hat and sunglasses and uniform had changed into a fantastic creature with bug-out eyes and hair standing up wildly on end." To imagine being in that situation and seeing that and being convinced that that is standing right in front of you and that it was real is just, I don't even know how I'd react to that, because your mind can play so many tricks on you, especially if you look at dreaming. My dreams can be so real that what I see, you will wake up just terrified from nightmares, or if you have a really good dream, it really feels like you're there. And to have, I've never had a hallucination, but for someone to have a hallucination, especially like the one that she had about the state trooper, I would be completely terrified, because it is said that your perception is your reality. So in her own reality, that state trooper was a bug-eyed, fantastic creature with hair sticking out all over. So I thought that was super interesting, that the fact that her mind could conjure up something, anything, for the state trooper to become at the moment she chose those characteristics. Her mind subconsciously chose those characteristics, which I thought was, first gross, because I really hate bugs, and second of all, kind of funny, because out of all of the things, that's what her mind chose it to be. So subconsciously, I wonder what was going on there. So that is up to speed with my reading so far. And when I read the next 25 to 30 so pages, I will recap those.